States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming this morning. The Tourism Tax Commission is meeting at 10:30, so we'll try to keep this to an hour today. Carla could not be here today, so Beth volunteered to do the secretarial duties. Could you do the roll call, please?
Robert Mueller.
Here.
Dina Kreitler. Here. Jan Brons.
Here.
Stephanie Greminger.
Here.
Kelly Fowler. Here. Laura Oliver.
Here.
Michael Hankins.
Here.
Jack Dunsey.
Here.
Joe Steiger.
Joe will be a few
So-
minutes late, so we have a quorum.
Okay, so do I mark him absent now and then change it
We'll
when
just
he
change
gets
it when
here?
it comes
Okay.
up, please. You have the agenda before you. I think it's your top sheet. Are there any additions or corrections to the, or any additions to the agenda for today? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Jack, second. Stephanie, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting were circulated to you earlier, but they're also included in your packet. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? We're going to try to send these out fairly shortly after the meeting so that if people aren't here at the meeting because they're gone or have some other business, so that you know what went on. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written. Dina, a second. Jack, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any citizens to be heard today?
Well, I may not be considered a citizen. I am going to take this opportunity to do this little business here. I passed out these cards. We're starting a process that's going to lead to a revision of the comprehensive plan for the city of St. Genevieve. The last time it was revised was 1997. And the plan includes the formation of focus groups to identify kind of major issues, opportunities, problems that the city has that will become the framework for more general citizen meetings. And the way we're going to put these focus groups together is following an old model, like 1955, called a reputational survey. And so what I've passed around is a card with 5 spots on it, and I've asked you, you don't have to do it today, to identify 5 people who influence decisions, both public or private, in the city of St. Genevieve. These will become the influencers, as the name suggests. And we're going to collect these. I'm going to do it every meeting I go to, and people come in and pay their utility bills, and however. And eventually I'll have enough that I'll then go through them and find out the people who are identified most often as influencers in the city, and then we'll ask those people to become our focus group. So fill it out now, give it some thought. There's a box out called ballot box out on the front, the utility, Cindy Gaddy's desk, and just drop it in the box. It's anonymous, and hopefully from this we'll start this process. The process is, I anticipate, depending on how long this takes, will be about an 18-month planning process with we're working with SEMO Regional Planning, and there'll be a number of citizen forums and ways in which we kind of refine the plan we have. Frankly, the plan we have has a lot of good things to say about it, how it's structured, but it's pretty typical. It follows a federal format that was created back when the federal government said, we'll give you grants, but you have to have a plan. And then they said, here's what your plan is going to look like. The problem with it is that while it did identify a lot of the issues in the city, most of which are still here, it wasn't a call to action. It didn't identify who the stakeholders were and what they should do and how these issues were going to be addressed. So when we redo it, we're going to be much more action-oriented, and we can't always get people to do what we think they should do, but at least they'll know that we think they should be doing it.
Very good. Encourage you all to fill it out and provide some guidance for this program.
So when I do this at Rotary, you don't fill out two.
There being no other citizens to be heard, old business. At the last meeting, there was a discussion about posting of the ferry on the website. There was several discussions going on, and I think the IDC has taken some action to maybe facilitate how the ferry status can be made broadly available, where they don't have to call every day, or Stephanie doesn't have to call and find out. It could be posted on various websites and with a hot link. So, Dina, I think you were involved in some of that discussion.
Yes, the IDC met at their quarterly meeting on Wednesday, and they have pretty much graded some funds toward creating a web page for the MoDOT ferry. So what they're going to do is they're going to put some funds toward this web page. So I think it's Ron Emmons' staff.
With the Port Authority.
But Ron's staff can go in every day and update the ferry status, the river stages, and so they don't have to call all the various entities like KDSGM and Stephanie and the Chamber to let them know if the ferry's running and if it's shut down, if it's closed to maintenance or whatever. And with that, the ferry's going to kick in half, and then IDC is going to match that half. So they're seeking bids now for proposals on who's going to do that creation of that page. And so therefore,
And they provide a hot link.
they're going to provide a hot link to all of the pages, to the tourism side, the city, the county, sometimes news, the chamber, to anybody who wants a hot link to their website. It will be available to them, to any bed and breakfast that wants it, anybody that wants it on their webpage, they'll let them have it. So it should be, I don't know what the time frame is, but
Anybody, does it really mean anybody?
well, within means, I'm sure.
Okay.
But
And will the IDC establish some criteria?
I'm sure, I don't know that the IDC will, the
Somebody.
ferry will probably,
Oh, the ferry.
the,
Oh, it's just portable.
the Port Authority. So, but I'm sure that they'll have their guidelines and, restrictions, makeup or whatever, however they want to go about it. I don't know what their timeline is. They're seeking doing some research on some proposals now. So Ron Emmons is probably the one that you want to refer to if you have questions in the next couple weeks. But he's going to be the one that's going to be revising that.
And where is that going to be hosted? What site is it?
It's their own website.
Their own
It's the
website.
ferry
It's going to be at
website.
stjohnmodotferry.com or St. John Ferry, whatever they can register.
Ron Armbruster was going to talk to Bo Caldwell about how to create a very simple page that they could pay someone to do just the page, and then the staff would be able to update that every day, and you wouldn't have to hire a web person to do that updating. It can be something very simple that anyone could be taught how to
Yes.
update. So I know they were talking about that.
Something very similar. They can just go in and say the ferry is running today, or it's closed due to maintenance, there's the river stages, whatever. It's something that's not going to be so complicated, or, that those girls out there at Ron's work at Tower Rock, that can go in and just update it every day and not have to worry about calling Stephanie and me and everybody else to tell us that the ferry's closed or it's running, or You know, because it's a process. They have to call how many people?
A lot.
It's a lot every day. You know,
So we're just trying to get a simple way to have that status out
Right.
there.
And some days they don't get to it until probably 10 or 10:30, or and some days we call and say, oh, is the ferry running today?
Yeah, because we'll get phone calls at the park breaks or something.
Right.
And we didn't get notified, so that'd
Right.
be nice to have.
Right, or if it's, they're running half a day and then they close because the wind's too strong and they close and then they forget to tell us. And we're still sending people down there and we don't know it's closed. Because the girls just forget, you know, they're busy out at Tower Rock, they're with their own regular job, they forget to call us. They don't think about
Can we
calling
get a
their
report on
offices.
this at the next meeting?
Sure,
Status, please.
sure.
Any other old business? In terms of new business, last week Stephanie gave an overview of the Missouri Department of Tourism Marketing Co-op program. I know there was a number of people in here that are very familiar with that program, but there are a lot of people that aren't very familiar with it. And just looking around the room, I know I didn't know a lot about it, and I asked Steph to put together just a short presentation to kind of acquaint you with that program a little bit more.
That would be the top page on the packet that I handed out. It's the questions that were requested, there really aren't simple answers to. And even with the information I have on here, there's even more. It's all in guidelines that the co-op, the Department of Tourism, puts out with their cooperative. But this is kind of the basic bones of what, all of this information was taken directly out of the guidelines. So that way there would be nothing lost in changing anything. General description program, it's a 50-50 matching reimbursement program that's been around since 1995. Prior to the city of St. Genevieve, the St. Genevieve CVB was the designated marketing organization with the cooperative program. DMO, that's just a designated marketing organization. These are assigned by the state per county, so there's only one per county. Previously, it was St. Genevieve CVB. In 2009, it switched to the city of St. Genevieve. We are currently certified as a leisure travel marketing, or an LTM designation. There are other areas that you can be certified in. One is convention marketing designation, and that is for business meetings, reunions, anything that would bring in businesses or groups to St. Genevieve to stay for annual meetings, quarterly meetings. Amateur sports marketing destination. This is another certification, and it's relatively new. This is to assist DMOs who have sporting facilities and want to attract regional, national, amateur through professional sports. So we have currently in St. Genevieve, every year we have had the Missouri State Road Race, the bike race. And then in the spring and the fall, the baseball teams have their River City tournament. So we already have the means to be a sports marketing event destination. What we don't have and what hinders us the most, we only have one hotel. We don't have enough lodging establishments. And when you bring in groups, you do not want to utilize bed and breakfasts because they will compare notes when they get together. Well, my bed and breakfast has this, well, my bed and breakfast has that, well, they're doing this for me. And it creates a negative attitude, and people will wonder why don't they have this or why don't they have that. And most of the group coordinators want all of their chickens in one basket. They want everybody in the same place. They don't want to have everybody everywhere. They like to have control. So those are two things, the convention marketing and the amateur. We have done marketing to get those groups in. We have been successful to a certain degree with the convention marketing, with businesses coming in. But until we have more hotel rooms, we will probably not be approved for those two designations.
And does being approved for those mean more money?
Yes. What does it take to be certified? This is not an easy question to answer. There was about 4 or 5 more pages added to what I have here, and since it was requested to have it in a one-page format, these are the basic requirements. We have, we meet each one of these, A, B, C, D. We are currently certified for $50,000, $25,000 matching, $25,000 from the state. We will not, what's keeping us from going any further, again, it goes back to the number of lodging establishments. We do not have enough hotel rooms in order to be certified at a higher level. Rules for using the grant money is also not a simple, there's basically 8 things that you have to meet, so this covers the front and back. Obviously, marketing activities have to take place within the fiscal year. Have to go with the 50-mile rule status, so we will not be reimbursed for any publications that fall within the 50 miles unless it's a statewide publication that runs a little bit differently since it does cover the entire state, like Show Me Missouri or Missouri Life. There are very interesting rules for TV, radio, and billboards, and I have not put that on the co-op simply because the approval process is difficult. Before you can go live with anything, it doesn't make sense to utilize these funds for that type of advertising. Publications goes back to the 50 mile away. In addition to that, the state does have a list of publications that they have approved. You can't just put it in anything. Last year, I had worked with putting advertising in a teacher publication, something that was focused toward educators, because we do have that market here. We do bring in groups, college, high school, and that was not approved for reimbursement. So they have a list that we have to follow that's several pages long as well. We have to use the Missouri Tourism logo. A lot of rules with that as well. Size, what it shows, where it's located on the ad, or any number of specific. We can only use our logo and the state's logo. They have made a rule that starting this year, we can start putting in small social media, so we can have a Facebook icon or a Twitter icon, find us on. But outside of that, nothing else. And everything has to be approved by the state before we send it off to print.
But does do not use the tourism slogan in any materials funded by the cooperative marketing program mean?
That is the state slogan.
Okay.
And so whatever their current slogan is, I believe right now it's don't take less of a vacation, take more of a vacation for less. So we can't use that. No, that's too many words. That's way too heavy. The matching funds have to be from locally generated revenue. We can't use any of the state money that we receive. So it has to either come from the tourism tax, which is what was done prior to 2010, or general revenue funds. Anything that, we have spending limits. Once it hits 3,000, we have to get so many bids. When it hits 20,000, we have to get additional bids. That is for any type of printing. If it is a price that we have through a specific publication, and there is no other way to put advertising in that publication, they're the sole source, that does not require bidding. So if we wanted to have a $20,000 advertising in AAA, we would not have multiple bids to put advertising in AAA. The only person who does that is AAA. But if we're wanting to have, say, brochures printed, that would, once it hit that $3,000 mark, we would have to go to 3 different printers in order to get bids and go with the lowest bidder. On, number 6, pre-approval, that was what I mentioned earlier, and that and before any advertising is sent to the publication or to the radio station or to television, billboards, it has to be approved by the state. Quarterly updates and reimbursement reports are required, and that follows within 2 months of the end of each fiscal quarter. And then marketing activities have to be completed by the end of the fiscal year, which for the state is June 30th. After that, the annual timing, kind of give you an idea. This is just what we had for this year. So in November, we will have to recertify for fiscal year 14. So this coming November, we will have to do some DMO certification again. But December, the project summary report was required. On this calendar, LTM is our responsibilities. That's our designation. I took everything out to simplify this. There's a lot of other deadlines that don't fall within our requirements. January 31st, the application was due. May 31st, the award letters will be mailed. And this is going to be dependent upon if we have funding. The Senate removed over $3 million from the Department of Tourism budget. And this is the $3 million that funds the co-op program. So if that does not get back in, when the House and the Senate get together with our joint committee to build the budget, there is a possibility that we will not even have these funds. July 1st, the program year begins. And then the quarters run July, August, September. End of November is when the first quarterly report will be due. This one blank. So once we have that, I will be executing the project, and at the same time collecting information for fiscal year 12 in order to have the project summary report that is due in December. And then after we have that done, we'll have to start working on the marketing plan and the application for the fiscal year 14. So it kind of gives you an idea, this is labor intensive. We have to really dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure we have everything appropriate so that we receive funding. Well, if it's funded by the state and there is going to be a program, there's a lot of hoops to jump through just to make sure that we get the funding and then make sure that we maintain that funding and follow all of the guidelines. The guideline itself is about, I think it's 45 to 50 pages.
And it's online. If you want to look at it, go to Missouri Department of Tourism Co-op Marketing, and you'll see the 2012, 2013 rules, and you can see all those,
Right.
the media that's approved.
Correct. And then they also have, and the state of Missouri has a wealth of information, research, markets, how do people come to Missouri, majority of them drive, the different segments of markets that they go after. There's just a lot of good industry research that applies to how all of the towns, how all of the cities that are designated marketing organizations, how they market their spots, and then how the state markets as well. And then the fiscal year end report from the state is also, for fiscal year 11, is also on that page. And that goes over each of the designated marketing organizations and how they spent their money, and if it was successful or not. It's a really good tool to use when looking at where's the best place to put the limited resources that we have available for marketing CJV.
Good. Any questions for Steph?
The DMO certification applications, do you have to redo that every year?
Yes.
I have a comment and a question. I understand if I were the Director of Tourism of the state of Missouri, I would want to try to get new dollars into the state. So I would try to establish rules that the state dollars are being used for marketing that would be attracting people from outside of the state into it. I don't think the 50-mile rule really does much along those lines.
It does not, and that's where reading the guidelines when you go through the application process is really important. The 50-mile rule has been there for, from what I understand, as long as the program has been in
Yeah, I
effect.
just don't see its utility.
Right.
But
Last year and this year, in the guidelines, which that essentially acts as an RFP, is very clear in stressing the need to go with outside markets.
we went to a meeting of DMOs here yesterday, I think.
Tuesday.
The city uses general funds. We have a bed tax, and we use the co-op funds for marketing or promotional activities. How many other cities have that kind of mix? I mean, if we lost the co-op, it would be a blow,
Yes,
but we'd still work at attracting people.
yes.
What about other cities?
The meeting that I went to was specific small market CVBs, which is a part of, it's one of the committees within the overall organizations. And many have, and their structure is very interesting. Some are under the chamber, some are under the CVB. A few of us, there's the city connection, and then others have a mix of CVB/city.
What do they classify small market? What's kind of their cutoff for the group that you met with? What's kind of their guidelines for that?
From what I understood, under 50,000
Okay.
population.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just
that's
kinda
okay.
curious.
And, with the conversation, and I'm actually working with them, they have some reporting on how they have their funding, how it comes in, the anticipated revenue, but it's a mixture of a lodging tax, a restaurant tax. Some have funding through other various grants, funding through the chamber, local businesses, such as, local as in, like the Mississippi Line or Folsom. There's
So there aren't many that are just relying on the state grant and their local match.
Right.
Most of them have other sources.
Most of them do, depending upon the size. The smaller ones, it's more chamber-driven, or the CDB, there's some type of lodging restaurant. Not many have city general revenue.
Okay. That might be a good lead in to Mike, if you could kind of just tell us a little bit about the Tourism Tax Commission, what that's all about.
Let me give you some handouts. While Mike's passing that out, what about if we don't get the co-op, how's our plan reasonable,
It would then depend upon the Board of Aldermen, I would imagine, for approval.
Reallocate, start thinking about reallocating.
Right now, the match is with general revenue, and it falls under the city. So it would be
What revenue?
general revenue?
No, this is federal.
No, general.
Oh, that'd be good. I like that.
So if that doesn't come through, I would include that in my request for city, when the city budget goes through.
Okay, I'll start off with the fact that we had a French Colonial Merchants Association. That was our tourism association, and it's been around since the 80s. After the flood of '94, we had this Glenn Weaver report. I'll share that with anyone who wants to read it. It's also called the Dr. Ed Mahoney report, and it's about tourism and development of tourism, and it's very in-depth. And it was to establish a tourism organization to develop and promote tourism. That was what it's about. There was also the second part of it, the main part was to establish an adequate and dependable funding. So then the next thing we had the report that was done, this one here. This was by the Southeast Missouri Regional Planning and Economic Development, and this was in '97. And that got us thinking, basically, those of us that were in tourism, about what we didn't have and what we needed. And if you look in one of these pages in the back, it's something that she was talking about, that Stephanie was talking about, at the time, it tells how many lodgings we have. And it's one of these back pages back here. It looks like this, and it shows you, how many people could stay in town. And that's why we could never get in any of the co-op stuff, the leisure travel stuff. We did get in several things. One of them was a $6,000 grant for an advertisement, and that was through the French Colonial, through the tourism department for advertising in Memphis. So we found that there is money there, and we wanted to get in touch with it, and we wanted to bring it into focus in St. Genevieve. So several of us got together, and we tried to pass a tax. Well, before we could pass the tax, or even think about the tax, we had to find out if we qualified. We did not. And that's some of these things here. This is your ordinance, or your statute from the state. You have a copy of that, that's that first one. And it tells about, you know, who participates and how they do it, and the two things, first one and second thing of how the money is dispersed and all those things. We still didn't qualify. Then we had Herb Ballard and several people on our side, and Kit Bond, and they did House Bill 242. And House Bill 242 actually went through the legislature, and that's this one here. And it actually establishes for Clarksville and St. Genevieve and St. Genevieve County at 2%. Otherwise, we couldn't do it. Now we qualify. The next thing we did was we put it on the ballot. This is a copy of the ballot. And this is what the people voted on. And the next thing that they asked us was, well, you know, and that's this page here that says, okay, who pays this? You know, what will the taxes be, and all these things here. And I'm not going to go through these. But you see, there was a lot of misconception by the public. We were on the radio, and I had people call in and say things like, I have a lodging, I'm not going to pay that tax. It's commonly called a bed tax. No one has an actual bed tax, that, you know, 50 cents per bed or $1 per bed. That's ludicrous. You have it on the revenue because it comes into more money. You have a $100 room and you have 2%, that's $2. Why would you pay 50 cents or $1? And so that's on the revenue. And they can track on the revenue, not the number of beds used. So we had a choice when we passed this bill, and it went up 3 times. The first time was for countywide, lodging and food. The second one was for citywide, lodging and food. And they wouldn't pass it. The third time was just lodging, and it passed at 76.1%. It only needed to be 50.00001 to pass at 76.1%. But they asked these questions, and then one guy said, you know, I'm not going to pay that on my beds. Well, informing the public is very difficult. They hear bed tax, they hear tax, you know, and they just don't want to vote for it. Another thing I have, if you want to see it, I have all the counties that surround us and what the population is in the counties. And you would be surprised that there are 50,000 counties around us. And so therefore, we at this part of the state don't get a chance to get much money from the state and leisure spending. The other things I have here to tell you is that the first year, what happened was, at that time, the DMO was the CVB. So we had logistics problems. CVB didn't have any money. French Colonial had merchants, and they had money. So what happened was, when you got into the grant process, the grants all had to go through the CVB. And you had to get money from the French merchants and from the lodgings and people who were putting it in there. When we finally became a tourism committee or a tourism commission for the city, we didn't have the DMO. So it took us a while for us to switch to DMO, but we had to switch it countywide, because at that time that was what you had to do. It had to be countywide. So that's why we have to encompass the county, and anything that we advertise. You know, we only have one golf course, so if we advertise golf, they're going to get it. We have a lot of wineries, they're going to get it. But, you know, whatever we advertise, but we also advertise the 4 parks. We advertise a lot of other things that are countywide, but we don't have to spend our money in any specific entity as a business. And they don't want you to do that. And Stephanie, it's getting more complicated than it ever was. Even though it's now online, we used to have to fill all this out by paper. I also have the facts that the first year, the fact that, and we felt, even though the CVB and the French Colonial were the DMO, we felt the law says that you have to have the money in your account before you can participate in their $25,000.
Because you actually have to pay for the...
You actually have to pay for everything.
And then you get reimbursed.
Right.
Before it has to come out of your pocket.
Right.
And so those of us that went on the tax commission, and those first people were Rob Beckerman, Herb Ballard, Lorraine Stang, Ron Armbruster, and myself. 1 year for Rob, you can only have 2 terms, but he, you know, you had to split up one, and it says in this, and there's a copy of that statute in here from the city and also from the state. But, and then Lorraine and Herb were 2 years and then 3 years, and Ron and I were 3 years and 3 years, so that they were staggered. So the first year, we didn't know for sure how much money we were going to get. We had an idea of it, because at that time, we could go out and see what the lodging taxes were bringing in, which is $850,000 the first year. And that was
Not
in
tax.
02. That was tax money. I mean sales. That was sales, actual sales. And so we said, oh, okay, if you do that by 2%, you're talking, you know, $17,000. So starting in the second year, we began advertising and putting in grant money through the CVB. But it was a logistics problem, because I had to give up being treasurer of French Colonial and treasurer of the CVB, because I was treasurer of tax money. But I was writing checks from the CVB to this, and from the French Colonial to that, and from this account to that. So we tried to, you know, make it more logistically, you know, feasible. And in the next couple of years, in the year 2001, we had $850,000. We began advertising, and the next year, the tourism sales dollars went to $1.3 million. And the following year, $1,152,000. That's just in the city. So we began by our advertisement, taking it from $850,000 of sales for the lodgings. We started getting it up by our advertisement. What we felt was when we read all this stuff, and there's reasoning in there, that back in 96, 97, 98, 99, that we should get on board with the rest of the population and enjoy some of this money, because it took our $17,000 to $20,000 right into $40,000 to $45,000, maybe $50,000.
Who's on your tax commission now?
Now, presently, I'm on there, Shirley's on there, Jack is on there, Jim Ferguson is on there, and Mike Devaney. And then Mike is being replaced because his term is up. So those are the ones. It requires, if you look at it, it requires 2 people from the lodging industry, 2 people from basically tourism related, and 1 business person.
And how often do you meet, Mike?
We have to meet quarterly by the ordinance of the city. If we don't have anything in right now, in August of 11, we made a motion. A motion was made by Jack or Jim, and seconded by Jack or Jim, I can't remember, to take $17,500 and turn that over to the city for the fiscal year starting in October 1, to put that money with theirs and use it as best they could. They didn't have, in this case, they didn't have to stay in that $25,000 and 50 miles, because that money wasn't actually going to go for the grant. The city at that time was the first time the city actually took over the grant processing and the application and the funding of that, so that they have to, what they spend, so that gave her $17,500. Our stipulation on that was that we wanted to spend it within 300 miles. And she gave it, and I think there's a copy of that in there, the report from Stephanie, that where she was going to spend it, and at the time, I think we had like $1,600 left, but I think we've allocated that. Yeah, we've spent that. But at the time, she printed that out, and I had it. So, and what she decided to spend it on was what we asked her to. You know, and there's no 50-mile limit on that. I mean, you know, but the thing about it is that you have to understand is with the state, they really don't want you to spend it in the state of Missouri. They want you to spend it in any place else, to bring them to Missouri, because that's their goal, is to bring people into the state. Our goal is a little different. We want them to bring to St. Genevieve. Any questions?
Just to tell you that they collect a lodging establishment can pay on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis.
Right.
So that sometimes when they pay on a quarterly basis, it changes when you just look at a monthly receipt of taxes, it could be out of whack. I know the staff here has looked back at what they have to also report on the monthly numbers. So they put together a chart of what the actual monthly revenues have been for that tax since the beginning. And you can take a look at it and just pass it
And,
on.
you see, there's three entities going on here. The state for the grant is July through June. The city for the budget is October 1 through September 30th. The state sales tax and our lodging tax commission is January through December. So you have three different things going on. Why the state does a calendar year is like we do is because people don't understand July through June and October through September. That just mixes up their mind. They can't grab a hold of that. So a lot of times we reported our stuff as from January through December. And of course, each quarter is the same quarter with everybody else. So all we have to do is take a quarter from one and fold it into the quarter for the other and make it called a different quarter, and it works.
The lodging, what's the lodging revenues for the total sales for the 11?
No, I didn't go out to get it, but it's down. And I will tell you this, that in talking to lodgings around the country, including in our own community, sales are down 30 to 40%. Now, a lot of them have raised their lodging rate. So if they had 100 rooms at $100, and now and that would, let's say be, what, $10,000, would be right. Now they're taking in $10,000, but their rate is $125. So you see,
Down market.
but they're not even taking in $10,000. They might be taking in $9,500. So they look at it and they say, well, I'm only off by $500. But they had to do a hell of a lot more, a lot less rooms and charge a lot more. So the $125 now is coming in, but they're doing a lot less rooms. So the number of rooms they're doing is less. But they're still not making in, their gross sales are still not as high as they were.
Yeah, I think if you look at our numbers, they're relatively flat over the 9 years.
Yeah.
And prices have increased on a per room basis, which
Right.
would indicate that
Well-
room occupancy rate is down.
Well, and you have to understand that your insurance didn't go down, it went up. Your utility bills, gas, electric, water, sewer, that didn't go down, it went up. Your telephone didn't go down, that went up. All of these things have gone up, and that's why they've had to increase their rates in order to maintain the business, to stay open, but they're not doing the number of rooms. And they're also not doing the gross sales.
For the benefit of those who didn't kind of follow the train here as we were going down this road, the Tourism Tax Commission's decision to merge the money, so to speak, with the city's funds so that it's all going into the single kind of comprehensive marketing plan was a significant decision on their part, and I think they are to be applauded for doing that. And hopefully next budget year they'll look at it and say that worked and we'll do it again. But they're going to get to evaluate it each year. And but I think it was the right decision, and I think it's working out well. So I'm pleased with that.
There's also the thought on that. Jack? And we're marketing people. We're not design people. And that was difficult for all those first years. We were creating. We did it pretty well, and we did increase revenue, and we did get things out there, but we had a lot of help. And you have a full-time marketing person, a professional, you should use their experience and use their techniques and use their things with guidance from this group here and from the tax commission.
Even though she may not survive the meeting.
Yeah. And so we felt that it would be better invested of our money to put it together with yours and spend it in one place. it would be unwise of us to go to an ad somewhere when she's already got an ad in there,
It makes great sense.
you know.
And I would like to give a little more historical background too on Stephanie's position, and maybe the rest of the board doesn't know that, but we, the Board of Aldermen pushed about 4 years ago to kind of change the interpretive center's manager into more of a tourism director role. And so we brought Andy on maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly.
4 years.
About roughly. We brought Andy on board on a kind of contractual basis to manage the interpretive center then, and also do some of these tourism-related activities, because Carol had just been manager, and her job description had never been more of a tourism director. And so after Andy moved on, then we hired Stephanie, and so we were trying to figure out a way to kind of have some oversight for her, because we knew the mayor and, you know, the city administrator weren't marketing people. So we kind of formed this ad hoc group that's now kind of made more of a formal committee for the tourism committee. And so I guess over the last few years, we were even trying to figure out a way to work with the tax commission, because we didn't want to have all these overlapping entities, but due to the tax structure, we have to have the tax commission because they have to oversee the money and do some of those things. So I don't know if that made sense, but there was the goal of trying to enhance Carol's position down there in the interpretive center, and really, and because we had so many volunteers doing this thing, basically through the CVB and the tax commission, and it was just to the point where, you know, the board realized that we had to bring on a professional and take it to the next level if we wanted to get maybe to this point where we're at right now.
Thanks, Joe.
Question.
Yes.
Has the tax commission ever considered putting a bed tax for the county back on the ballot again?
I don't
Is that
necessarily think it's the tax
allowed to
structure.
be done already,
It's been tossed around among us, but the problem is that you will have more beds in the county than you do in the city, but they're not filled as often as ours are. For instance, Ozora has, 69 by themselves, and you also have the ones that are out there by the wineries. If you look at the statute, and I don't have it right here in front of me, but if you read the statute, it plainly says on there, and this is the statute, this one here, and I can tell you that, and I've shared this with others, you can go out and see the sales tax, and the sales tax for lodging of any kind is code 70. And it says right here, okay, it says, commissioners will be, all members I have to find it, but it says lodgings of any kind is what it says. Boat docks, overnight stays in RV parks, hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, all of those things, which means those condos that are owned out there, if it's not being stayed in by the person who owns it, it's being rented out, they are supposed to collect sales tax on it. They are not. Because you can look at the sales tax at some of the times for the county, because it's separated county and city, and you can look at that and you can say, wait a minute, there's 70 rooms in Ozora, and there's another, counting the bed and breakfast and the condominiums, another 30. So you're talking well over 100 rooms, and that's more rooms than we have basically here in town. And they don't have the sales tax to support it. So what are they doing with it?
Is that just not being enforced? Or?
And it's not up to us to enforce it.
Okay.
We don't open that can of worms because we don't want to get into it. But here's the thing, they're not collecting it. And so we don't want to get into that, and they say, well, we have more rooms than you, so we want to have a bigger say. Now, sure, but tell me, where are you going to go to buy something out there in the county? Where are you going to go to see a historic home? Where are you going to go to see a museum? Do they have events that are happening all the time? you know, like the next one coming up is the Garden Walk, then in June there's the French Festival, et cetera, and so forth. They're all done here in town. So we need to support the activities here in town, so we've said, no, we're gonna stay away from that. If they wanna do it, let them put it on the ballot. We tried several times, and we couldn't get it to go. Out of my pocket alone, there's 5 of us that put money up for that, hundreds of dollars, each one of us, to go for this. So, we've decided, no, we're not gonna, it's not us, we're city, and we'll stay city.
Okay. Let's move on, see if we can conclude the meeting here. Stephanie, would you like to talk about the digital footprint of the Welcome Center?
Yeah, one of the items that I handed out is digital footprint. It's something I've been working on for a little bit. Been doing a lot of research, trying to find what the industry standards are for social media, for the most part, and have found some really good information. And this was something that was also brought up at the small market MECBB meeting the other day. We had someone come in through Hoffman Lewis, who that is the marketing agency that the state partners with, and their social marketing person came in and gave a lot of really good information on the best way to manage the social marketing. We currently have our website, visitstjohn.com. I looked at from March 1st of 2011 to March 31st of 2012, and about the average visitors to the website per month is 1,750. And that has been a major jump. Prior to that, there were many months where there weren't more than 500 or 600 visits to the website. So just looking at 2011 over 2010 was a significant jump. So the advertising means the advertising is working.
That was my next question. What would you attribute that to?
Advertising.
Okay.
And where we were choosing to put
Sure.
the advertising. Facebook page, there is a profile page that's set up as a person, but it's for the city of St. John. This was set up many years ago when it was the only way you could have a Facebook page was through a person. That is going to change. We cannot have that. Facebook is going through and sweeping out a lot of these pages that were set up as a person as opposed to as an organization. So I have already set up a new page, and it's Visit St. John Facebook page. It's a fan page. This will allow us to, with the advertising, include the social media icons. So we'll be able to have the little F in the box and the Twitter. And it will be strictly for tourists.
Are you going to take down these other 2 pages?
I will, yes.
Yeah.
Well, not the second Facebook fan page we have, Historic St. Genevieve, I'm going to maintain, and it is going to be the local.
Okay, that's the one on
Business
the, it's
side.
on the website now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So I'm going to start working on the Facebook. I want to do that ahead of time, so that way I just don't go in the office one day and suddenly our main Facebook page is gone and lose all of the photos, all of the commentary, everything. I want to avoid doing that. So I've already started working on that. So we have 2,375 friends. Most of those I'm going to recommend going to the current Facebook page because they are local and regional. They would not be lumped into the tourist side. And hopefully that'll increase, I know there is some carryover between our friends and fans on our Facebook page. There's, kind of the same. Probably the majority, actually. Twitter, we currently have 51 followers. This is a tool that really has not been utilized well in the past. I have been using it for more event-driven, or when we were voting for the America's Coolest Town with Budget Travel Magazine. I plan on utilizing this more, but maintaining that with events. Getting ready to have the fashion show at St. Mary's Road for the World Heritage Day. Just kind of give out those shouts and start working on trying to get a bigger follower base. We have a LinkedIn connection. LinkedIn is kind of actually going on the slide. It's more of a professional, individual style of marketing, but we do have a site. There's information out there. The YouTube page, we have the couple of different videos out there. the way they're set up, the profile is set up on YouTube, it looks like it's more through Chuck Kuchin than it is as a freestanding St. Genevieve YouTube account. We have the Missouri's Oldest Town video on there, and we've had 2,775 views since the day it was posted. Pinterest is a new form of social media. It is a pinning of photos. It is now the number 3 in the social media being used. It just took over third spot. So we have Facebook, Twitter, and then Pinterest. Working on setting up an account for the city of St. Genevieve. I just set one up for myself to kind of get in there and play with it and see how it works. There's a way that we can have this set up on our webpage so that people can pin photos from the Visit St. Gen website. Would like
There's
to
even
do
a
that.
historic pin thing that you can do, historic buildings.
Yes.
Are you a Pinterest fan?
Pardon?
Are you a Pinterest fan, Bob?
It's mostly a female.
Martin
It
is.
really is.
I bet he is.
It really is. And as is the social networking, it's very female driven, and females are the decision makers. That is our audience who we're going after. We are looking at the 45 up, educated females. That's our number one goal, because they're the ones who make decisions about where they go on vacation and what they do. And these, they farm and they play the games, and they see different travel opportunities. So yes, I'm very interested in utilizing this new form of social media. There's an opportunity for a blog, and this is a really good opportunity set up through ilovelocalplaces.com, which is a website in Cape Girardeau, and they have a second one that they are starting up a second site, and it's looks at Southeast Missouri as a region, and they have asked me to write on their blog, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. One of the things they're going to look for is for me to name very specific businesses, and that's something I try to avoid doing at all costs. I don't want to promote Station 2, and then if I don't promote all of the other restaurants, it's going to cause hurt feelings. So I'm trying to figure out.
Make her happy.
No, it's me.
Well, no, I know. I guess it's a Big Field Cafe and not Station 2.
Yeah,
It would. Yeah, so I'm in a kind of a goofy position with, I have to. I try to promote the industries we have in St. John, not the specific businesses. If we have an event, I'll promote the events as much as I can. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to utilize a blog, because it is a great way to get out communication and still maintain the industry and not hurt feelings or have people get upset because they don't feel their business is being focused on enough.
It's also, maintenance intensive, more so than a
And that is
webpage.
as well.
Are you the only one at the Welcome Center that enters onto the social media, or?
For the most part,
Okay.
yes. One thing that was also very interesting and made me quite envious at the small market meeting, they have a person who all they do is social media in these other small towns. They have one person who handles their groups. They have one person who handles their events. And then you have the director who manages the staff. I am all of those.
Can you give us a report on your staff? Can you tell us a little bit about your staff that you have down there now?
Yes. Currently, I have 3 staff members. Tori Herzog. He is my only other staff person who is computer friendly. He does a lot of work. I recently, within the past couple of months, we have given him an additional title. He is my group/event coordinator, in addition to basically he's an assistant to the director.
How many hours does he work?
21 a week.
Okay.
And most of his time is spent, we clean the Welcome Center, we answer the phones, we handle people, email, phone calls. So we really kind of juggle social media and the groups and getting all the information out. Marjorie Jokerst, and she's currently on medical leave as of today, and hopefully we'll have her back in a few weeks, but it's kind of a question mark. And then Mercedes Rodriguez, and she works usually once every 2 weeks. So I spoke with Martin the other day about having Brittany maybe come back in to help offset some of the hours that we're losing with Marjorie being out.
What was Marjorie typically working?
She was also working 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay.
I have asked Corey to maybe step up to 4 days a week so that we can have 28 hours. It would be very handy to have. And with Marjorie being gone, I'm having to kind of step in and fill her spot. So it's going to help having Brittany come in. And she probably won't be toward middle end of May, because she does have a full-time job herself that she's going to do. So it's a huge favor having her come in.
Okay.
So are you going to be looking for someone to replace Marjorie while she's out, or just have Brittany fill that void?
It's going to be Brittany and myself. In order for me to hire anyone, I have to go to the board of aldermen and get approval.
Well, then you got training,
And then I've
Brittany
got-
comes in, hits ground running,
Yeah.
fill in for a month.
Do you think Brittany can do that, though, with a full-time job?
I'm really hoping she can.
You haven't heard from her yet?
Well, she's interested, she's willing, but it comes down to, you know, I mean, if she can even come in 1 day a week, and then I can staff, you know, and have her come in, I can look and see what my busy days are, and have her come in.
Is Mercedes not willing to pick up an extra shift here or
She
there?
has, I think, 2 other jobs. I know she
Oh,
works at
okay.
the library part-time, and I think there's another position that
Okay.
she does on a part-time basis. With the, you know, with the budget year coming up in October, I am going to be requesting to be able to hire additional staff. But that will be up to the board of aldermen to decide. On social media, content strategy, Twitter updates, I'm going to focus using for events. That will be much easier for me to do. I can set that out via my cell phone, an app on my phone, and while I'm out and about with the different events, I can get the different updates. Schedules, hey, the funnel cakes are down here in Maine and Jefferson, they're really good. The blog posts, I was looking at 1 a month to kind of help out with that overwhelming, but that's still kind of up in the air. I really don't have time to be able to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't start something you can't
Yeah.
do well.
What if you had guest bloggers? Maybe the mayor could do a blog, the city administrator, somebody from the winery, somebody from,
And that is
Historic
something that can be
homes.
done. That is actually something that can be done.
because there's the notes page on the Facebook page too, that is basically like their form of a blog, right?
Right. There's also, with that Southeast website, they are looking for guest bloggers in addition to. So, I mean, this is, you know, this would be an opportunity for the wineries or the restaurants or the people in St. Genevieve to have blogs.
That would maybe give a way for, maybe just go through the list of all the restaurant owners, all the merchants, all the everybody, and they each get a blog at some point where they can talk about their business, and maybe somebody
Good
can
idea.
fit in there.
And that is actually just as a business, as a house, as an entity, it's really good to have those. They add 2 things. They will come up on Google searches, and it's an additional way for the search engines to find your web page. Utilize, you know, those blogs are really good for that, and it helps with Google rankings. So it's beneficial for anyone to have a blog in addition to, or attached to their business page or their nonprofit page. And then current online advertising that is either planned or is currently in effect started with April 1st, so I don't have any analytics to go with these yet because they just started. But we have advertising on Belleville News Democrats, online, Southeast Missourian, Southern Illinoisan is both online and in. They have a monthly publication.
It's Carbondale.
It's the carbon. It's all of Southern Illinois into Kentucky. Southeast Missourian also has a monthly or quarterly publication that we have advertising in, as well as their online. Missouri Life, we are online. Their newsletter, their e-newsletter, and in print ad. And we have a really nice ad. My Missouri Life walked. It grew legs and walked away. So I brought in some samples, but it was a really nice ad that we have. And I don't have to bring it in to show, but I have other examples of similar advertising. And then the Post-Dispatch will have advertising online. Would focus mainly on the online. What's nice about the online is they click through to our website, so it gives me a way to analyze the effectiveness of those marketing campaigns.
Do the Google Analytics, you can.
With the Google Analytics. When you have an ad in a paper, typically it's just that one day, it's one shot and done, and there's no way to really track it. So it's the online advertising, I think is the better bet. It's going to give us enough opportunity for return on investment and ROI.
Just, I noticed on the website we got MySpace on there, and there hasn't been a post since April. Can we get that taken off?
I have requested it to come off. I will request it in.
Okay. What was next on the agenda? The visitor guide, visitor brochure was listed at.
Right.
I
That's
think
on the
you all have
backside.
a- yeah, you all have a
Yeah, that's
copy.
on the backside of the digital profile. So the visitor guide was printed, the most recent was in June of 2011. In order to go through updating the visitor guide, my staff and I go around with information, try to do as much via email. I like to have things in writing. That way if there is a problem, we can revert back to that. But I go in and make sure that we have all the same phone numbers, the same email addresses, the same websites. Are you still planning on maintaining this? Do you have a change anticipated in the future? Even after having all of this information and everybody signing off, 2 months down the road, someone will change their phone number or their email address or their website or something, their hours.
The business closes.
Exact, business closes, another one comes in. So the current visitor guide that we have is as of June of 2011. This is not a new problem for anyone. One thing I've noticed with some other cities and how they've handled this issue is they have on their visitor guide that the information on the guide is current as of the day it was printed, which they put the date it was printed. I will do that moving forward. I think it's a great idea because we do have people coming in and this business is no longer here. Or, you know, I've been trying this number and it's not working. So that'll give us an opportunity to do that. To produce the visitor guide, to have a redesign or to start from scratch, it takes at least 50 hours. And for a graphic designer, $50 an hour, about $2,500. To do an update, which we're in the process of doing right now for the website. So we'll have an online version that's completely up to date. That takes about 12 hours, going back and forth. Printing cost, the original printing that we had, I've learned that when we get down to the point of we're ready to send the file to have it printed, I need to rebid it. We originally had a bid of 45,000 printed, and the price was $11,000. I rebid, and I was able to jump it to 70,000, and they bid it for $8,600. I did this with the prior printing, which when I first started 2 years ago, was in the process of being done in May of 2010, and that one was printed around June. I was able to rebid that printing and get more for a better price. And then the shipping costs, obviously. We are about halfway through the remaining brochures, so I anticipate having to go with another update and printing in January of 2013. I'll have that part of my city budget request.
When should people start giving you information? Are you going to put out a notice or something?
I will be going door to door, or emailing or phone calling. I will, because I want everyone's signature on the information, or an email with the information.
Do you anticipate major revisions or just some?
We are at a point on this one has been updated to the point that it's going to need a redesign. We do have a new bed and breakfast, and the bed and breakfast page is full. So we're going to have to figure out the best way to include the new bed and breakfast so they can have a photo and some information. That's going to be a major issue, and then we also have to look at what to do with our galleries. We've kind of got that squeezed in, so we are going to have to look at a redesign. So this will be a major project. Moving into distribution. Distribution is done a lot of different ways. All of the welcome visitor centers, Chamber of Commerce, all throughout Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee. We've got a lot of places up and down 55. AAA offices, as a part of the advertising that we do with AAA, we are also in all of their travel offices. We have it on our website. Group tour and travel offices, we send out brochures to. And then we also have packets that we send out whenever there is a group, big travel conference or church or it's going on faith. I will have brochures to hand out. We have a profile page I hand out. This past year I was not able to go to any of the conferences because the funding was not approved. That was part of the city budget. So what I've been doing is...
I voted for it. I voted for it.
You did vote for it, thank you. It didn't get, it wasn't approved though, unfortunately. This is something that needs to be in the budget. We need to have space at these places.
And just so the committee knows, sorry to interrupt, but you really do need to talk to your alderman. You know, we're just sitting here, I shouldn't say spinning our wheels, but talk to your alderman and let him know the importance of what this committee is doing and what Stephanie is doing for tourism and what it generates for this town. So she is going to be running up against that here very shortly. August we'll start our budget cycle. And I know there's a few other aldermen that recognize that she needs to have more in her budget because there's only so much she can do with the dollars that we have. So, you know, we paid Stephanie good money to come in here, and if we don't give her a budget to work with, you know, it's, you know, her hands are kind of tied to what she can do with the money that she has now. So, when you see your other aldermen, tell them that, you know, you think it's a good investment for what we do with her budget.
So, moving on. So we have packets that we'll send out. I watch when they have the meetings. While we still had membership with a lot of these different with the different travel groups, I would get a list of the operators that attended these, and so I would send out group packets to let them know, hey, we're here. We also were not able to maintain our memberships with these different groups, so I no longer get that information. So I'm really flying blind in trying to attract groups. Advertising in the group travel was not approved. There is very limited funding. For fiscal year 12, it was on the co-op. It is not in the advertising budget for the city or for the tax commission or for the county funding. So that's made the group and trying to get those groups very difficult. We're at various rest stops, gas stations, all of the area attractions. I walk and I try to make sure that everybody has up to date. Folks will come in and say, hey, I ran out. We happily give those out. Individuals with all of our advertising, they will call and contact, and I don't have email or I don't have internet or I can't figure out how to download it on the computer. We will mail them visitor guides. That has increased considerably. We have packets that we'll send out to meeting planners. We hand them out at the Welcome Center, and then they're downloadable on the website. And we do try to promote the website and downloading that as much as we can, so that way we can save on postage and still have the visitor guides handy.
One of the problems we have is the one that's currently on the website is not the one that was printed in 2011. It's even an older one, and we've been working to try to get the PDFs in a printable form.
Actually, it is the one that was printed in June. The problem is only half of it is printing, and Kim is working on that, and I hope to have something by the end of the week. She sent me one, a different version, and what she did was she cut down the size of the file and made it into, I don't know the lingo. It is a PDF. It's a PDF on the website, but the way she broke it down, now it's all 8 pages. No, not a zip file. It's a PDF. It's something she did.
The problem is when she does the thing for printing, it's like the whole big sheet. Now she has to break it down into 8.5 by 11 printables.
Right. So we have that fixed. Now she's updating with the new bed and breakfast and how we're going to put that in there, and the new businesses and taking out businesses that are no longer around, such as Poppies. So she said she should have that for me by the end of next week. So we will have that back on the website and running.
Are you aware every time a tour bus comes into town, do you know about it?
Not necessarily. If they coordinate through the Welcome Center, yes, we do. But there are a lot of companies that will just set it up on their own outside of.
Because we had one pull up at 4:30 on Easter Saturday, And we were closing a little bit early because we had family event
Actually,
to
they
go
were
to.
in all day.
So, we normally, we will get an email if, I'm assuming when you guys know about it, because you send something out, but,
Right.
We were getting ready to close, and here this bus pulls up, and,
Right, and that was a bus that we were aware of, but they did not schedule any out and about time. They were coming in, they're gonna see this house, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, they're gonna eat dinner at the St. John's Hotel, and then they're going. They weren't going to run around, and this is something with the groups that is a struggle, is trying to get them in that shopping time. I can understand from the group coordinator's perspective that they want to keep all their people in the same spot so they don't lose anybody, forget anybody.
yeah, but they don't have enough time. They all say that when they come in, they're like,
Right.
we have like 5 minutes, we gotta get back to the bus, and.
Right, right. And that's, as the person, the group coordinator who's in charge of all those people, especially when they're looking at the senior groups, they don't want them all over town because they can't keep track of them. And that's why they have these very short bursts, But that group in particular, they did not plan anything outside of visiting the historic homes and going to dinner at the St. Genevieve Hotel. But there will be times when people will coordinate all on their own and never contact the Welcome Center. And there isn't anything, we can't tell them who can't come.
How do you notify people that there's a tour in town?
If it's something I have warning about, and if it is something where they're trying to schedule time for shopping, we send out emails. I try to get the word out.
I've gotten numerous emails since the restaurant's been open. I mean, we've gotten a lot from you guys.
I mean, I try to get the communication out as quickly as I can. If someone calls and says, that a bus just pulled up, and I'm like, no, there's not one
Well,
planned
do you have
today.
a set distribution list for that email?
Yes,
Businesses, houses?
yes, yes.
Any questions on electronic, or on the brochure?
Okay.
On your report?
All right, so we have, in front of you, you have the individual, or my report. Quick note, any tally marks prior to, numbers prior to June of 2010 are suspect. The way people were tracked were via tallies as they walked in the door, and included the guy who delivers the water, the guy who brings in the coffee, the guy who brings in the newspaper. If people would come back to use the restrooms, they would be counted twice. So it wasn't a very well-organized, and to a certain degree, we still have the tally sheet, but we're making sure that we're not counting multiple people or people that are not tourists. On the weekends, where we have major events going on, for 2011, it was Jour de Fête, World Heritage Day, and the Holiday Christmas Festival. We had too many people going in and out. The staff was too busy to be able to even track. So those numbers are missing for 2011. So our visitor count would have been much higher had we had a way of tracking people walking in the door, but we simply do not have the staff. And even if it still would have been extremely difficult. Yes, John?
I was under the impression that historically we would never do that because it would always be skewed. We've never counted Jour de Fête.
They were marked on previous years when I was looking through. They were marked as they did count. They counted other festivals, not Jour de Fête.
Yeah.
But the other festivals were counted.
Right.
But this past year, World Heritage Day and Christmas, the holiday Christmas, we couldn't do it. There was too many people in and out. Which is good. That is a good thing. And then with Jour de Fête, in addition to people coming in and out, the Welcome Center is kind of a base of operations. So, even outside of having to help visitors who are coming in, there's 20 other things going on in the visitor center at any given point in time.
Yeah.
And it's chaos. It's very chaotic.
Better not count it at all and to have skewed data
Right.
for that one reason.
No one seems to really have a good way of tracking that. Talking with the other small markets, they have estimates, and it's kind of based on head counts. And these numbers here, these are just people who have physically walked into the Welcome Center. That does not include anyone who has been to St. Genevieve. They come down, several times a year or every year. they don't come to the Welcome Center. So there's a whole other percentage of people that aren't counted as a
Doesn't-
result.
Don't national police procedures have statistical processes for that?
The crowd estimate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and
you know,
that's-
ultimately, we're going to judge the wisdom of the city's spending money for tourism based on the return of the investment that's reflected in our sales tax receipts and your lodging receipts. I think we should try to keep track of traffic. But if the 100,000 people a month showed up and they didn't spend $1,
Well, I'm just talking
We
about.
would- we would have failed.
weekend. I'm just talking about that one weekend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just Georgia Fed weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to Eric and see if he's got some kind of magic.
Yeah.
But it's,
And that's the same format used by the smaller markets, is they use the crowd estimates when looking at counting the visitors that come in. It helps on a few different levels, but for most part, scheduling my staff. And what are my busy days, what are the busy times of year? This gives me an opportunity to really look at and see, do I need to have 2 people here on this day, which once we get into the summer and everything starts really going, I will have to have 2 people working. Or have, someone come in for a couple hours during the high time. So that gives me an idea of where my scheduling is at with my staff. So looking at March 2011 compared to March 2012, this year the Keyboard House was closed December through April. The Felix Valley House was closed 3 of the 4 days out of the week. So we had discontinued the passports. It's also a time of year when we don't have a lot of group visitors. We did have one here in...
You're talking about suspending the passports?
It was suspended
Not
December through
discontinued.
April. It's as of April 1st, it was back on sale. But December through April, it was suspended because
Yeah.
we can't sell something and have houses closed. We did have the St. Genevieve Women's Club hosted a regional meeting for the Women's Club, and that's these 13 that came in. It was the last weekend of March. Other than that, we didn't have any. Now, the groups have started up as of April 1st. We have had it almost feels like every day we've had a group. At least 3 or 4 a week. So that's really picked up, which is great. Passport sales are going pretty well. It's getting back into the swing of things. People are, we had a very busy Monday. Had a lot of people coming in, they were just going to be for a few hours, so they didn't buy the passport. Did sell some though. Expenses, the marketing expenses for fiscal year 11, fiscal year 12 are broken down. City and county in 2011 is combined, and the co-op and the tax commission, which was the matching for that, there wasn't a way to separate them out and have each their own because of the way the money was allocated and spent. So that gives you an idea of where our total budget was in March of 2011, and then looking at where we have for the year for March of 2012. A few things different. City county is still combined. The co-op is now matched by the city, and the tax commission had its own funding. All of the funds for fiscal year 2012 have been allocated.
Whose fiscal year?
Everybody's.
City?
City, state, tax commissions, and the county. All of the money that has been put toward marketing has been allocated. It's just a matter of the printing. I am working on October and trying to get the marketing together, what direction we need to go, and so that way I can start planning on putting advertising out. I can't do that until we have a group budget, so it makes it very difficult because now it's the fall advertising is where I'm at. I'm done with summer. It's advertising the nature of it. It works that far in advance. So, does anyone have any questions?
What is it field trips in May that it's always busier than some of the summer months here? What's going on in May?
Well, there's a couple of things. We have the garden walk. There's a couple of different events. I know that the Route de Vin. We have a lot of folks who, as their kids get out of school, May 15th kind of seems to be a big turning point. But this year, if you look at our numbers, this year the weather, we have had a lot of traffic. We really did not have a downtime. So for the first quarter of 2012, we are at 9% where we were. And those numbers, I can say, are pretty accurate because it is such a slow time that you can track and you do remember, oh, they were here earlier and they're just coming back to use the restroom. So that's a significant increase in traffic.
I think school being out is the biggest.
But school will come in, and then we'll have people who want to travel before school lets out. So we have, you'll see a lot of couples, seniors. These numbers up top, these are individuals only. These are not any of the groups, not the school groups, not. These are just people who walk in on their own.
Well, the weather was so much better this
It
past
really
winter.
was. Because our advertising was down. I did not have a lot of advertising out January to March. So that was good. And then looking at the tax revenue, the tax revenue for the city is doing very well.
Except for this one.
Except for this month, it was down. It was flat, actually. Did it flatten out?
No, it was down 18,000.
Oh, that was because they had the 70,000.
Well, you never know. 1 month.
Right.
Don't panic over 1 month.
Right.
One of the things that we'd like to do ultimately is identify the tax receipts of those businesses that are tourism sensitive. And the problem is that only certain people have access to the individual taxes paid. So it's something that can distribute broadly. But I think it's important that we do that because while our overall sales tax movement is a good indication of what's going on, if we can target those businesses, it'll be a better indication of the degree to which Stephanie's efforts are paying off. It's just tedious. It's just, there's no program to do it. You just have to go through, pick them out, find the number, and stick it into a spreadsheet.
Any other questions for Steph? You had handed out your budget report attached. You have tour revenue shows up someplace else, but you have a thing called tour expenses in there. What makes up tour expenses?
That is the money that I pay to the houses as a result of the passport sales and the group tours.
Okay. And the tour revenue is basically the revenues
Offset.
The offset. It's kind of a pass-through thing.
Yeah, the problem is, and we're going to correct that this next budget cycle, is while the expenses are in her budget, the revenue doesn't go back into her budget. So we're going to have to allow for that in our 2013 budget thought process.
Okay. I think that's it. Other than, I wanted to bring up, I think we have, and we're going to end up with about 11 people on the board. We still have one person to be named. The bylaws allow for the establishment of committees, and I thought maybe what we might do is establish some committees and we can kind of spread some of the, looking at what's going on and just give reports on a monthly basis rather than everybody has to be involved in everything. And also any standing committee has to be approved by the board. And there can be ad hoc committees to do a specific issue, which will give a specific time period. But I thought that...
You say Board of Aldermen?
No, Board Tax or Tourism Advisory Committee meeting. The four committees that I was thinking about is one called Electronic Media. And the purpose of that committee would be to provide advice to the city on electronic media, either the website or some of the social media that Steph's working on. A second one would be on print media, and that could be to assist and advise on the brochure and ads that go into print. A third one would be what I call tourism development. We have and some of that would help in putting the co-op program together, we're doing a SWOT analysis, that sort of thing. What do we have now? What are our weaknesses? Where can we go? Where can we change here in the community to broaden our tourism base? You know, we do a lot of cultural tourism now. What other kinds of things can we do that are going to bring people of maybe a different segment than what Steph was talking about to our community? We don't get a lot of families here.
We don't have anything for families to do here.
I know. So what can we take, like in your long-range plan, should we have a long-range plan on tourism to develop? Is that a market we should develop, and what do we have to do to develop that market? What kinds of changes do we have to have here? Groups, how do we get more groups spending the night here? What kinds of things can we offer groups that may not be in our current plan? So it's kind of doing some brainstorming and looking at some of the data. So that'd be a third committee. And the fourth one would be kind of a group or a committee that would deal with grants, the finances, and measures of success.
Resources.
Yeah, kind of a resources committee. And so I would like to request the board to approve those 4 standing committees, and then we would make assignments, split it up so everybody's on at least one of those committees.
I'll make a motion to approve those 4 committees.
Is there a second? Steph, second. Any discussion? And these committees would meet, you know, and work with Steph on during the time period in between meetings, and I would to look at what's going on, doing some of their own private research and coming back with suggestions. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I guess the next thing is to make some assignments, and as the chairperson,
Anticipated this approval.
on the electronic media committee, Dina, Stephanie, and Beth.
Stephanie Grimminger.
Steph Grimminger. Print media would be Jan and Kelly. Resource committee would be Mike, Joe, and Jack. And tourism development would be Bob and Laura, myself and Laura, and whoever the next person is that gets named to the council.
Maybe I found a banker.
Well, we got some bankers. They've been handling the money for a while. Is there any other business to come before the commission?
I have something real quick. In addition to what I handed out, there is an email about the MACDD conference that's going to take place June 3rd through the 5th in Springfield. I am not going to be able to attend that. My son is leaving for boot camp that weekend, and I plan on spending that time with him before he goes. So if anyone is interested, this is the Missouri Association of CVBs, Convention Visitor Bureau. This is a really good opportunity to go, meet partners, see what the other cities are doing, talk, ask questions.
If your son weren't going, would your attendance have been covered in your budget?
Nope, it would come out of my pocket.
Could you send that around digitally to everyone?
Yes.
And then if you plan to go, coordinate with...
I think you did send it to us, didn't you?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah,
Because I
sent out an
think I
email
got
about
it. I think you did send it to us.
Well, if you plan to go, I think you should let Steph know that you're going.
Yeah, and that was my other part, that if you are interested in going, please let me know, so that way I can, let the MACDD know that you're representing City Lead, and, might need a little help getting point A to point B, because this can be pretty crazy.
Where did he?
Springfield?
Okay. There being no further business before the Tourism Advisory Committee, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think you had one, Diamonds.
Who was that?
Joe.
Joe. Second?
A second.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth.